This is a strange looking combine with plenty of oil. There's quite a bit of dew on the ground this morning, meaning that we've got a few hours before these beans will even be close to cutting. We'll let this old gal warm up a little bit before we put her to work. We're gonna get our money's worth this year. Ground conditions are dry, and we've got some sins to erase from last harvest. What are you looking at, punk? If I had to give you a very rough description to compare the inline ripper to the disc ripper, the inline ripper is like your politically correct aunt that drinks IPAs and watches Ellen. The disc ripper, on the other hand, is like your redneck Uncle Jimmy who drinks Budweiser and watches NASCAR. And they all would pale in comparison to a moldboard plow, of course. But I don't think I can give a description here on this video that's YouTube appropriate. By the way, happy Saturday and happy first day of October. Let's go set this disc ripper. That we already hit with the inline ripper in spots, but we've kind of changed our tune on how we want to work this ground. And we're off. Midway intermission for a depth check. Looking pretty good, moving a lot of dirt. Oh my gosh, you could almost plant behind this thing. And my boot shovel has just failed. I'd say we can screw it in a little deeper. Why not? Put this thing in the ground, see what she's capable of. Oh yeah, now we're moving some dirt. There's no doubt that it's working plenty deep. It's literally pulling up moisture, and it hasn't rained in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Almost looks a little too deep for me. I've wised up, I'm using my heel now. The heel goes and the toe's already out, then we're really in trouble. Resorting to the big guns. Over maybe. I'd say 12 inches deep, if not a little bit more. Might back it out just a hair. There's really no intentions of me running this any longer than I have to. We've got a guy that goes to school at Lakeland College, an ag student that lives out of state over in Indiana, which not that that's too far away, but he inquired about running some tillage for us. And I figured if we don't get it work now, we'll be kicking ourselves if it starts raining. So we'll let him run the nice, luxurious 9620R. I have to lift it out of the ground to raise the height. 5 turns is 1 inch. But we'll try to go for 2 to 3 less. Put her in the ground. If it looks good, we'll roll. I'm sure that a lot of you are concerned because I said we were going to run the inline ripper or the subsoiler out of this field, and that was my intention when we planned everything. The finished product out there, though, is not going to be conducive to anhydrous ammonia application. We think that if we want to work it deep and be able to still put anhydrous on, this is something that would work. Is it ideal? No, I'd prefer to do less topsoil tillage, but it's what we're going with because we don't want to miss the opportunity to get that very price competitive anhydrous on, especially with where nitrogen prices are at right now. To be honest with you, if it was a little bit drier and I wasn't working so deep, you could probably plant behind this. The issue with the massive clods pulled out there, other than operator comfort when putting anhydrous on this field, is that it could create nitrogen gas sealing issues if those berms of that gaseous anhydrous ammonia do not seal over top and that gas seeps out of the ground. We're literally losing our highest price fertilizer up into the air. We don't want to waste nitrogen. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to be efficient with our inputs, produce the biggest crop possible with the least amount of waste. This is what we're going to use to alleviate compaction on some fields. Now we still will run the inline ripper on places, lower horsepower tractor I imagine, so we're going slower. Although this is pulling pretty darn hard right now. You can see the difference in the finished job. The pass on the right may have been working a tad bit deeper. The product left over though, not conducive for fertilizer application later on in the season. This tractor for 3 working seasons now, and I'm still not used to how large it is going down the road. I am ditch to ditch with my tires right now. I am taking my time. Why not? Beans are still drying. Might as well top off the diesel tank while we got some time. If you think that S780 is impressive with fuel usage, you should see this 9620R. This thing makes that combine look like a Prius. It's warming up. Beans should cut soon. Oh boy, we're gonna have a traffic jam here. Not enough driveway space for all this parked in one place. Both combines, both drapers. The only thing we're missing is the grain cart. We got help this time. Chris making my life a lot easier up here. Pulling up just enough to unclog traffic. That should do it. You guessed it, we're headed to sample some beans. Some more 35T15 Enlist soybeans, courtesy of Pioneer. And by courtesy of Pioneer, I mean it's their genetics. Really, it's courtesy of our wallet, because we gotta pay for them. We're on head cart duty. Couldn't have timed this any better. There goes Dad in the combine. Back into the entrance. Pull by, grab the draper, move the cart, cut beans. Yeah, they felt a little wet too. Drying off a little bit. 14, 15, maybe 16%. No big deal that these beans aren't ready to cut. We still need to service the drapers, move the equipment, and all the fun stuff associated with cutting soybeans. Normal wear and tear when you're out cutting soybeans, these cutter bars run across the ground. Not only do they wear quite a bit as they cut through the bean stems, you also get rocks and other debris out there that cause damage and deteriorate the sickles mainly. These guards also break. Together, they form the cutting action as the sickle moves back and forth. The beans come in here, it's cutting, and these guards serve as a backstop for the sickles to cut against. The better shape you keep your head in, the sharper your sickles are, the more edge to your guards, the better you should be cutting. I found a spare few minutes in my busy schedule to give you guys a little bit more of an update on what I was talking in the previous video about some issues we're having with a drainage project we just started. This farm may be familiar to some of you for the fact that right there we installed that big 24-inch dual wall main draining out about 16 or 1700 foot to the drainage ditch. That was a big project, that was a big pipe, and it was pretty neat to watch. So if you haven't seen that video, go back and watch it. It's still the most viewed video on the channel. People love drainage for some reason. By no means was that the first installation of any subsurface drainage pipe on this farm. That was a supplemental run, high capacity surface water removal. This farm gets a lot of rain, that ponds down in here. 75 to 80 acres of this 125 acre field
will quite literally be underwater if we get a 3 to 4 inch rain or multiple rains in quick succession. The unfortunate part about that, other than the fact that it's our farm that does that, is that it is actually pretty productive ground when it's not suffering water damage. So we have initiated a plan over the last few years to rejuvenate the drainage system out here, improve it, and add additional subsurface and surface water removal capacity. It's a double prong approach. You have to get the water off the surface first. Once it's gone, it's equally as important to remove subsurface moisture in the pore space, because that can also cause tremendous damage to your plant's root systems.
Easy peasy, right? It's already got subsurface lines running out here with perforations in them on 90-foot centers to help bring out some of that pore space water, more on the other side of the slough out here in the field, combining to create a pretty good initial drainage infrastructure. But we wanted more. There's no problem doing that. All it takes is money. Just need someone with a nice tile plow like this to come in and turn those 5-inch lines on 90-foot centers to 5-inch lines on 45-foot centers. Split it in half.
There isn't a lot of groundwork to be done other than locating the tiles, because it already has laterals going out in the field. There are sub mains running north and south on this farm. All I gotta do is dig them up and tap into them. That's simple, isn't it? As my dad would tell you, nothing in life is ever simple, and I'm gonna show you why.
You see that section right there of 10-inch dual wall drainage pipe? That's half full of mud. Well, a 20-year-old pipe should not be half full of mud, virtually rendering the idea of tapping into this a waste of money. It was just gonna be way too effortless. Dig it up, back the plow in here, hook into this, and run our 5s and go. Split the field, drain it easy, 300 bushel of corn next year.
That's just not the way life goes. Unfortunately, seeing this has made our project much more expensive and pressing, for the fact that not only is this additional tile really a waste of time on a main like this, it also tells us that the laterals we already have out in the field are probably not running at full efficiency. For those of you who are unfamiliar, I'll give you a tiny bit of background on subsurface drainage. Our water here is not pressurized. We rely on gravity, and to achieve gravity, we need grade on the pipe. To get grade on the pipe, we need GPS, of course, or a laser, or some kind of measurement system, but mainly we need a friendly topography, which this farm does not have. It's almost flat as a pancake here, and the end of the main that dumps out into the ditch is also relatively flat. That means we don't have a lot of fall or drop in the line, ultimately not giving us very much wiggle room in how these systems are installed. That essentially explains why we think that that 10-inch dual wall main is full of mud, because all of the laterals that were hooked up to it were laid at such a minimal grade that they could not clear the water fast enough to keep them from ultimately silting in. Water flow is good, one, because you're getting use of your investment, but two, water moving through the pipe at adequate speed and pace will help clean out any silt in the bottom. On the opposite side of the coin, if it sits in the laterals for too long, because they are such a small pipe at a minimal grade, they will start to silt in, ultimately causing downstream issues. We can't really think of anything else that would have caused it. Are you guys paying attention? Because there is going to be a quiz at the end of the video. You need to remember all of this stuff. I'm just kidding, although I have talked a lot about things that probably are useless information to all of you.
That 10-inch plastic main that's in terrible shape runs from there on the south side of the field, on the farthest dirt pile, all the way here over to that grate right there, to another 24-inch concrete line that drains out the field, in almost parallel fashion to how this new 24-inch dual wall line runs. Yes, you are correct. That system on its own moves a lot of water. Add in a second one, and that tells you exactly how bad the ponding issue is in this field.
We got lucky though, or somewhat lucky. There is some beauty in the chaos. This new 24-inch line actually sits a little bit deeper here in this spot compared to where that 10 inch is hooking up over there. So we were going to be able to salvage the length of the lay by hooking in a new 10-inch line here on a better grade, running it out, catching every single one of those bad laterals out there, tying them in, and then if we want to continue to spend money, we can also move on and put the new additional laterals in there.
The bad news is that this project is going to be a lot pricier than we were budgeting for. This needs fixed though. We need to get that other 10-inch main draining, or at least get those laterals doing something. The bad news for the tile contractor is that that plow is not capable of laying 10-inch dual wall sticks.
He's gonna have to make another trip back to his shop and get the wheel trencher, because you gotta have a wheel trencher to lay pipe of that size, especially if they're in sticks. If it was in a roll, which dual wall will not be, single wall could roll in and he could probably use the plow. Not the case. We want dual wall. It has more flow rate, has more structural integrity, and for this job on this farm, we think that's what we need. It's not necessary everywhere. Here though, it's gonna help. It's disappointing for us, like I said, because this project's gonna come in at a higher price tag than we were hoping for initially, and it's also disappointing for the tile contractor, just for the simple fact that I know that plow is much more profitable when it's running than the wheel trencher. Wheel trencher takes multiple forms of labor, multiple people. You got a boot on there, you got to watch the tile, you got to do all that. That plow, they need one person digging connections, they need a person on the stringer truck, they need the plow itself running, and it's pretty minimal after it gets in the ground.
This is what one of those 20-plus-year-old 5-inch laterals looks like. They cut a little section in there to see the quality of the tile. I'm not going to pop that open. It's about a third to halfway filled with mud.
Oh, there you go.
I guess a third maybe. Still, a third of a 5-inch line is a lot of capacity removed. Just to summarize everything I've just said, 10-inch main is bad. We're gonna come in, run a new 10-inch dual wall main right in front of it, cut through all of these laterals. If they are in good shape, we're gonna hook them in. If they're in bad shape, we are gonna mark them, set them to weep up against the tile, meaning they're not directly connected to the main, but there will be a small hole for that water to kind of fill in. And we are gonna go out into the field, we're gonna run another lateral right by it, and then we're gonna hook in to it whenever we find a spot where it's good.
At the end of the day, we're actually extremely lucky that that new 24-inch main sits deeper and on a better grade than the old one down the stream. If this 24-inch here had not panned out as a quick alternative, it could have been a much more expensive fix and a very disappointing day. Not that it was not disappointing to see this in the first place, but we want it done right. Our tile contractor said, hey, you know, I don't want to hook in lines into this main because you're wasting your money, and he's probably not wrong.
Dad just dropped me off at the grain cart. We're moseying that way. Time to cut some beans.
I'm sure we got oil.
We're gonna check anyways. Plenty of it. Like the track system has oil and all the sight glasses. Other side's good as well. We're ready to rock and roll.
I kind of figured though that the boss would be here cutting already, and he's not. Since he's not here, I mean, it's only right that I fire up the 780 and go cut some beans, isn't it? You know what I like to say, when the cat's away, the mice will play.
The responsible farmhand thing to do would be to clean his windows. That's not as fun as running the combine. There's Katie with the other combine. We're gonna get off to the races this morning. Let's go.
I only get so many opportunities to run the 780. Might as well take advantage while I can.
Little I-beam staked in the ground marks where this big field, which we farm both sides of, splits into 2 sets of ownership, so we do need to keep these beans separate. Looks like Katie started. The combine operators can thank the tech guy because there is a line conveniently designed on all of our auto steer monitors to go straight down here. Maybe I'm wrong about being a grain cart driver. I could get used to running the 780 all day. This spot looks kind of suspect. What are we working with here? Tile hole? No? Just a big cucklebird. I always like to turn the Harvest Smart on, which basically monitors the power consumption on the machine. It keeps the ground speed where it needs to be to ensure that we're not spending too much time over that 100% harvesting engine use range.
From an operator standpoint, it's great because it keeps you from overloading the machine too often. From the son of the combine operator standpoint, it's hilarious because I won't tell my dad this is on, and he will be so confused all afternoon about why the combine is slowing down on itself. It's just a classic gotcha. You can do things to people when they have no idea what the technology in the machine's even doing. Just plugged the cutter bars because I was cutting sideways, directly perpendicular to the rows. Even with dual-sided drives, 2 separate cutter bars, when you're going across the rows, if you hit it just right, it's not gonna like that. Would you look at that? There's even an auto steer line for the south side of the field, a blind in row next to the neighbor.
You gotta love technology.
Oh, hey, there's my conveniently placed camera in the grain tank, showing me what's going on up there. There's literally nothing else I could do to make this job easier for the combine operators. Not that they care about a camera, but I enjoy camera too, if you can't tell by the grain cart. I would say she plugged that pretty good if she's still working on it.
I really ought to go help her. It looks like she's actually in pretty bad shape there.
If I were in the grain cart, I definitely would be out there helping her dig that out. But I feel obligated in the combine to keep cutting. You always want your machines moving. We're getting quite the pile in there. I'm gonna go help Katie dig out this draper. She's been here for a while. Well, I may need to give her a breathalyzer. Look at the line she cut through here. Jeez. What'd you do? Is it caught under the belt?
Well, it's easier to pull a strap from up here. It's not under it.
Back in action. That was an eventful start to the field, and I'm probably going to need a Zyrtec because I got blasted in the face by soybean dust. One of the worst allergens on the farm.
Yes, we are gonna clean our windows when we get a moment today. Relax.
Today we're harvesting another field of soybeans, different ownership, going into a different set of grain bins. We want to make sure that we weigh everything in, that way we can tabulate our yield out in the field, but also keep everyone's splits and their personal grain differentiated in the bin. Fortunately for us, we're still working with the Libra cart system. Everything's set up. I got our field name, I've got our bin site in there. It is going to automatically keep track throughout the day as I load trucks, batch those trucks out, and when it's all said and done, I'll have a nice clean report with very accurate weights for what we cut in this field and took to the bins.
I had fantastic luck with this yesterday on my first day. Pretty easy to set up as long as you run the instructions. Looking forward to running it for the rest of the season.
Well, loosely run it because it kind of runs itself. There's no starting and stopping like the Digistar scale system, which is pretty nice for someone who gets forgetful at times.
My goal as a grain cart operator is to never turn around and have to look. I like to rely on my mirrors so my neck doesn't hate me at the end of the day.
No, I didn't touch a thing. It's idiot proof. If I can use it, you probably can too.
If only you could automate the loading the truck part, because that isn't quite so dummy proof.
Load that so big.
That's barely over the tarp bows.
Our neighbor Dan's got the gleaner out picking some corn. Looks like it's yielding pretty decent.
This through here is some really good dirt though, all around. We are on the bottom side of the glacial till, the glacial moraine, so we get some kind of washout through here. Very dark, productive soils. Now it's spotty. There are areas that are lighter clays, especially as you get south. This area right here though, some of our best dirt in my opinion. We always raise really good soybeans on this farm.
Go, Dan, go!
So I figured out the auto steer and the cloud-based communication. If the operators of the combine set a quick line, it doesn't save on here. If they actually make a line with a heading, I can just grab it. Look, that's Katie's line. Boom. I've got their auto steer line now. That's pretty slick. What more are they going to automate here? I mean, we got the scales working themselves. We've got the combines driving themselves pretty much. If Dad were to flick a few more buttons on that machine, it would literally change the settings as the threshers move throughout the day. It can do everything.
I guess you could take the operators out of the machines. Who's gonna sit here all day though and complain about what we're doing while listening to the Dixie Chicks and also running a very high risk of making a mess by spilling grain?
You don't need a computer to do that. I can do it for free. Well, of course, you'd also have to pay me per hour. I also complain about labor conditions. Don't have much going for me here.
In all seriousness, whether you want to hear this or not, automation is the future. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's certainly going to replace a lot of jobs, but maybe overall it can lead to a higher standard of life by increasing efficiency while also reducing the cost of everything. That's probably just wishful thinking. I'm sure it'll just make people lose their jobs and other people make more money. That's typically the way the world runs.
I don't exactly know what is going on out in these spots in the field. We've had some ponding issues out here the last couple seasons. To be fair, it was extremely wet last fall. Surely this couldn't be compaction. We were so graceful when we harvested through this spot. No way that we could have done this with our heavy machinery. The sheer quantity of mud on the combine tire should be evidence enough for how sloppy it is.
Geez, that's soft. That's real soft.
I call this area the grain cart swallower. I would not make it through that. We'll see how the combine fares in this wet hole. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is why we have four-wheel drive combines.
This farm does have some older clay laterals running east and west, splitting through here. Based on what I'm seeing, I wonder if we have a backup in the line somewhere or something similar going on, because this is an unusual amount of water ponding in this area. I speculate that it's an old clay lateral causing this issue, because those of you who have worked with old clay tiles know that a broken and plugged old clay tile, especially if it has a lot of upstream water filling out into this area, can be more of a pain than not having any tile at all. What happens is if it's draining someone else's farm to the east and it's coming this way because grade runs west, and somewhere in here there's a crushed tile or something blocking the lines, that water will find the low here and then bubble out, creating an area that is artificially wet. I would say that's the case because the sprayer left 6-inch ruts out here, and I don't think there was any time that this field was sprayed and it was wet enough out here or had rained enough recently to cause ruts like this. So I think we got a tile problem. I know. Hate to beat a dead horse. What's new? Tile problems and high yielding soybeans. Issues that we always have. Holy cow, he was deep there. Never mind. Let's go leave that one be. We just finished the east half of this farm. West half is basically the same thing. Like I said earlier though, different ownership, so we got to make sure we keep everything separate. That being said, beans are yielding in the low 80s still. They are testing our logistical capacity at the minute, so I'm gonna go get another semi truck. Oil was good. Time to get this puppy to the field. Still amazes me how big that tractor is. There's a lot more combines out across the countryside than there were a week ago. Dad's on the far side taking some end rows off. Katie's here just cutting throughs, and I'm gonna go dump this off the cart. Failed at my job today. Combine stopped. Libra cart made my life easy. 205,910 pounds of soybeans. Divide that by 60 because there is 60 pounds per bushel of soybeans. That gives us about 3,500. Our bins we're loading are small government bins, we like to call them. We can normally get 3,300, maybe 3,400 if the winds of fate are blowing at our back that day. So it's gonna be close getting that last semi load in. Regardless, that was 41 acres that we just cut. So those beans made 83 and change bushels per acre. Not bad. Pioneer 35 T15 enlist soybeans doing extremely well on our good dark ground.
Because this bin will be full, I'm gonna go into Libra Cart destinations. I'm gonna add the next bin, Glenora, which is what we call these. Getting a phone call, North Gov, that's annoying. Glenora North Government bin, select that. Now everything I load outbound, regardless of whether or not it's automatic, will go to that North Government bin in our records. Dad's gonna go move the auger. So he's gonna taxi me over to his truck. He's gonna take his truck and I'm gonna take the combine.
He'll come back while I move on.
Auger?
Oh.
Okay. We'll need about 2 hoppers to do that, I think. See you later. Katie, I'm gonna be running Dad's combine, so you'll have to dump yourself on the cart, but make sure it gets on there because we gotta weigh it out.
All right, I heard you.
These junky Pioneer beans barely making over 80 bushels an acre. How are we ever gonna get by with yields like this? If everyone could give a quick moment of silence for the old grain cart that I buried right out there last fall, it will be missed. Should make it to the end. Seeing as I am both the grain cart guy and the combine guy right now, or one of 2 combine guys, I should probably dump this so we can keep cutting beans. Libra cart, quite literally doing the Lord's work, keeping track of the crop. 50,000 pounds of soybeans in the semi truck later, and we're headed back to the combine. I think Katie found one of those weather balloons. Or maybe not, I'm not sure. Was that one of those weather balloons?
Celebrate. Feel better soon. It's your day.
Did you feel like you needed a little motivation this morning? Oh, darn. It wasn't a weather balloon. Those are always cool to find. Some of the weather monitoring stations around will occasionally put up like a survey balloon to track wind direction or jet stream or something. And we found one 6 or 7 years ago. Dad and I stumbled across one out in the field, and it had a mailing address on it and everything. It came with postage on it. All we had to do was take the device out, put it in the mail. Never felt so important in my life. We're making a dust this afternoon. Our turn. Dad's back, so back to grain car duty. It was fun while it lasted. Dad radioed over and said that the last semi-load that we sent off of the east side of this farm just barely squeezed into that government bin. Typically we get 3,300 to 3,400 bushels in. I weighed out 3,500 and change. So I'm thinking that test weight is definitely heavier or higher on beans this year. I don't know if that has to do with late rains, the cool into the growing season, or what, but we are gaining a lot of yield by having heavier bushels. I don't necessarily know that we have an excessive amount of beans out in the field. It doesn't seem exceptional, but they definitely are heavy. This feels much more normal. Only a few more rounds left and we will be moving west to another farm. This tends to be the way soybean harvest goes. You kind of kick the ground for a little bit the first couple days. None of your beans are dry enough. Then one field gets ready, then 2, then you blink your eyes. Next thing you know, every single one of your fields is dry, and usually too dry by the time that happens. And there is the end of this field.
Dad's on the road. Katie is unhooking her draper. I'm gonna be joining Dad quickly with his draper once I get the grain cart unloaded so we can get a final weight on this field. Like I said, we want to make sure we keep our loads separate so everyone gets the fair amount of bushels. I don't need to do the math because Lever Cart's already done it. The north half of this field pulled off 191,425 pounds of soybeans. Leaving the grain cart and taking the draper to the next field. About a 3-mile drive. There's the bin site where our soybeans have been going. And just over the horizon is Dad waiting with the S780. There comes Katie bouncing down the road. Dad's cleaning his windows and Katie's about to pull into the field. We're back at the cart. I'm taking this to the field. Jeff's taking the last semi back to the bin and dumping it, which should complete another bin for us. And Chris is taking the pickup truck. Road mode engaged. This field we just cut made a little bit over 82 bushels per acre. The west end fell off. I don't think that was a true yield issue. We started on the east, it was dry. As we worked our way west, the beans dried off. Once your soybeans get drier and drier, especially below 13%, that's where you start to see those losses because of the beans being at too low of a moisture content. That free weight that you're always accounting for is not there. You see the yield start to slip off a couple bushels an acre. All things considered, these Pioneer 35 T15E Enlist soybeans have done phenomenal on a lot of our farms. 82 and change here, can't complain. Better late than never, I guess. Dad ran back up to the bin site because that second bin's gonna be full, so I get to take the command seat in the S780. It looks like Marty had a minor case of the cat beans. Wow, these beans are dry. There's really only so much you can do. You've got limited harvest capacity. You can only get through them so quickly. Of course, they will pick up moisture once evening sets in, and we'll have a higher moisture content in the morning. But we can't just sit here and wait for these to dry. We have to cut because you never know what the weather's gonna bring. You don't cut them when you get an opportunity, you may be putting the tracks on and mudding them out later in the year. More combine action coming to you. These soybeans are a Don Mario 3756E Enlist bean. It's a 3.7, so 2 points of a maturity group longer than the 3.5s we've been cutting, but planted early in the season. I believe on the 27th of April. My dad, Chris, and Jeff are back there at the bin site setting up to the last small bean bin. And we will keep cutting beans like we were instructed to do. We're averaging in the mid-70s right now for yield. Moisture hanging around 10 to 11%. Super dusty right now. The auger's set and the cart is full, so I'm gonna mosey on over there and load the 10-wheelers so we can get some bushels away from this field. I've got room in my hopper for another round, but these machines are gonna be sitting if we don't start moving some of this grain away. Oh yeah, she's full anyways. That's where the beans are headed. I'm not gonna haul it up there. Sometimes I would, but we're not going to right now because of the trees and some issues on that south bin. So Chris is just gonna be jumping back and forth. I'm gonna load him. Jeff's gonna sit at the bin site. I load Chris. Jeff helps Chris dump. Rinse, wash, repeat. The average on these beans is starting to increase slightly, which is good to see. Hopefully we started in the worst spot. Maybe as we work our way to the darker, more traditionally productive ground, we might start to see averages in the low 80s again like the field we came from. We've had great luck with these Don Mario beans. It's the first Enlist platform beans we even tried 3 years ago, and they've not disappointed. Swing around to the west side on the way back, and I'll catch you, Katie. One thing about the beans being this dry is that we can dump on the go a lot faster. Less horsepower required for harvesting equals more horsepower allowed in excess to unload while you harvest. Is there room for me to take these up there, Dad, so we can catch up, or do I have to load them here?
I don't think there's room.
10-4. Just what I was afraid of. They're still a little behind from setting the auger,
and I'm almost full again. Dad's firing up his combine.
dry beans?
10 to 11. Both combines rolling with the grain cart. We're going to be cutting beans faster than they can catch up, I can guarantee it. We will run out of bin space before this field is over. We're behind logistically, so why not go ahead and just load a semi-truck? It'll go to the elevator. The beans are dry, there's no question about that. Loading the truck. I switched the destination from the South Government bin to T&L Coals, which stands for Tate and Lyle Coal Station. So we'll keep all of our weights right with this farm for record keeping, but it'll keep the bin separate. It's that simple. Masterful work out of the cart driver. All we gotta do now is go back into our destinations. I'm gonna scroll back to Glenore, which is the bin site, South Government bin. Everything I unload from this point on, as long as I keep it on that setting, will be allocated to that bin and totaled to this field. Combines are gonna keep rolling. It's a dusty afternoon here in Central Illinois. Dole Farms is still cruising right along. Only thing that hasn't been going well for us is how dry our beans have gotten. 10% and lower, which is not really ideal. It isn't that alarming because we've cut much drier beans than 10%. If we pull the plug, which we are debating on doing and shutting down for the night, we can start back up first thing in the morning, relatively early, and cut 14% beans. That 3% in moisture that we add actually adds a pretty large percent in terms of dry yield on the bottom end by giving us our moisture allowance back into our beans. I would say that's exactly what we're gonna do based on the combine formation approaching me. It's like the dinner bell rang. She was just excited to quit for the night. That was a little jump for joy. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't ready to be done for the day. It's been a long day of cutting. You've treated us well again, ADR370. Thank you for your service. Before I forget, I'm going to export all of our data from today
Just a couple quick, easy buttons here on the LibreCart system. Hit this, type in a top secret email address, and bam! I've just sent the field files. Up the road at the bin site, everything's running fine. We got the fans going on all 3 of those smaller soybean bins, keeping the air flowing. Air movement seems to help quality on the beans, so having the fans on those 2 are full. This one lacks about 1,000 bushels, which we'll get first thing in the morning. Quitting early is a win-win for both of us. We should gain 2 to 3 bushels an acre by getting that added moisture first thing in the morning, and you guys get the courtesy of me going home and finishing my first harvest video, which you will be watching tomorrow, Sunday, October 2nd. I don't want to curse our luck, but everything's going pretty good for the start of harvest season. Maybe haven't covered the most acres in a day to some people. I think we can be happy though with the progress we are making. Anywho, still no rain in the forecast, which is a blessing and a curse. You can count on seeing me tomorrow. That's going to be it for this video though. I greatly appreciate all of you tuning in and continuing to support the channel. Everyone, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!